Right, Chair, we're now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Mike, and welcome everyone to this, the third meeting of the COVID-19 Response and Recovery Scrutiny Panel. I do apologise for the slight delay, but hopefully the technical issues are all in the past now. The meeting tonight is being streamed live on YouTube, so good evening to any interested viewers that might be joining us for this meeting. The agenda and associated papers for the meeting are all available on the Council's brand new spanking website, www.ashfield.gov.uk. Can I please ask for patience should the meeting move at a slightly slower pace as we work through the agenda and deal with any possible technical issues along the way. To ensure that the audio for this meeting is as clear as possible, we are muting all microphones as a default setting to keep the background noise to a minimum. When wishing to speak, I would be grateful if members could raise their hand and wait to be invited to speak by myself. Your microphone will then be unmuted and you'll be able to speak. Members will be voting tonight by raising their hands to indicate that either in favour of the motion, against the motion, or wishing to abstain. So I'd like to go to agenda item number 1, and that's to receive apologies for absence. Can I ask, Mike, is there any apologies to be submitted tonight?
I believe, Chair, we have Councillor Dave Shaw.
Okay, and I believe that Councillor Shaw has had some bad news in his family. So on behalf of the panel, I'd like to send our wishes to him, and I look forward to seeing Dave back playing a key part in this committee on November the 5th. Agenda item number 2 is to consider any declarations of disclosable pecuniary or personal interests and non-disclosable pecuniary or other interests. Can I ask if there's been any such declarations?
No, Chair, no one's indicating.
Okay. Agenda item number 3 is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the last meeting held on the 3rd of September 2020. I'd like to move those minutes. Have I got a seconder? Okay, thank you, Councillor Blagden. Can I ask for a show of hands for those in favour of the minutes, please? Okay, thank you, members. Have we got anyone against the minutes? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that is carried. Thank you very much, panel. Agenda item 4. At the last meeting of the panel, members agreed to focus on business recovery in Ashfield. This will be set over the next 2 meetings of the panel. We had previously put forward a number of questions from the public regarding local businesses at the last meeting. Tonight's the meeting, I would like to welcome Teresa Hodgkinson, the Director for Place and Wellbeing at Ashfield District Council, our Markets and Town Centres Manager Trevor Middleton, Paul Stoppard, our Planning Development Manager, and Martin Wrigley, the Chairman of the Discover Ashfield Board and a local business owner. What I hope to facilitate today is an open discussion with both council officers and Martin to see how we're maintaining an ongoing dialogue with the local business community, addressing changes in national and local guidance, trading difficulties, health and safety guidelines, and the longer term impacts. Before I bring in Mike to provide a summary of the report, I would first like to ask Vice Chairman, Councillor Jim Blagden, who's going to give us a statement on where we are with the COVID-19 People's Memorial. Councillor Blagden.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm going to do this report with pleasure, Chairman. Since the last meeting, I am pleased to report that further progress has been made on the COVID-19 People's Memorial. After meeting with Christine Saris to discuss funding, we have now met with the Council's communication team to move to the next stage, and that's the public consultation. I am pleased to report that the Council have agreed to give the committee a page in the forthcoming Ashfield Matters magazine to gauge public opinion on this. After all, it's vital as a people's memorial that the people should decide. I will read you the article shortly. This will hit the doorsteps week commencing the 23rd of November to go out with the bin calendars. Approximately 120,000 residents will receive this. An email address has now been set up for the residents to have their say. That is covidmemorial@ashfield.gov.uk. Any electronic correspondence about the memorial will go to this address. This is now up and running, and the microsite attached to the brand new council website is in process of being set up. It's been written and simply provides you a contact form and a simple questionnaire that can take 2 minutes or as long as you want to take to fill in. A letter also will go out the same week to schools, voluntary organisations and other groups like Scouts, Cadets and Air Training Corps, libraries and places of worship. If there are any other organisations you would like to see us engage with, then please let us know. We'll be meeting with Sarah Daniel next week to discuss options on how a memorial may look. This is only the start of a process to look at initial costings. The final decision on what it looks like rests with the people of the district. I would like to thank all residents for getting in touch regarding the memorial. We are confident that together we can come up with a memorial or a memorable memorial that people will be able to look at and remember. Those who gave so much during the biggest national crisis since the Second World War. A memorial that residents can reflect on the loss of loved ones, or a memorial where people can celebrate and remember the unstinting contribution of all key workers. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, here is the wording for Ashfield Matters and the website. We're happy for you to suggest any changes, amendments, as this is coming from us. Every Thursday evening during the COVID lockdown, our streets were packed with people clapping for key workers. Their contribution during the pandemic has been immense. In the spirit of this, your council's COVID-19 Response and Recovery Scrutiny Panel are launching a consultation for a COVID-19 People's Memorial. The panel feels strongly that there should be a lasting memorial to key workers who put their lives at risk. What form this will take, it's entirely up to you. Where it will be, it's up to you. We want future generations of people in Ashfield to remember the great sacrifices that key workers made during this pandemic. It will be our way of recognising the NHS staff in care homes, our emergency services, our army of volunteers, shop workers that kept food on our tables, council staff who went over and beyond the call of duty, public transport staff who kept our district moving, and teaching staff who allowed the key workers to make a difference, and the many more thousands of residents in the Ashfield district who did us proud. The panel wants a people's memorial that reflects public opinion, something that will not only remember those who lost their lives, but those who saved us. If you would like to contribute to this consultation, then please email covidmemorial@ashfield.gov.uk. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Blagden. It's clear that a lot of work has already gone into this, and I thank you for leading on this on the committee. You posed a number of questions there. The first one was about who we should be consulting with, and the second one was about the wording. So I don't know whether any members would like to comment on that. No? Are we all happy then to proceed with that and move on to the next stage of the COVID People's Memorial? Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, before I bring in Mike to provide a summary of the report, just a quick apology. You'll notice in the report under the section Emerging Themes, the recovery section, it omits to say the word Hucknall, and it should read Hucknall, Kirkby and Sutton. So I'd like to apologise to the people of Hucknall, my fault entirely, but that the report will be reflected to say that. So, Mike, can I bring you in just to give a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Before I give a brief summary, just like to mention we also have in attendance Christine Saris, the Assistant Director for Planning and Regulatory Services. Just wanted to clear that up as well.
Sorry about
that. So in terms of the report from page 14 onwards, Chair, this provides an overview of the latest COVID-19 Nottinghamshire surveillance report and latest government guidelines and measures as recently amended. Included in that revised message is the new hands, face, space, and the latest regulations and guidance for working from home. With regards to businesses, the revised guidance also includes some advice for licensed premises and stricter enforcement rules, as well as details of the local restriction support grant, which includes it being available to larger and smaller businesses, 1,500 for every 3 weeks during a local lockdown for the larger businesses, and £1,000 every 3 weeks for some of the local smaller businesses. With regards to Ashfield and what was discussed at the last meeting, obviously the committee decided that as part of the next couple of meetings in particular, it wanted to concentrate on small businesses and high street recovery, hence kind of the invites to the appropriate officers and Martin as well. This is going to be done, as the chairman has said, over 2 meetings. Initially, I think part of the discussions at the last meeting was that we would bring in some of the local businesses at this meeting. I think on reflection, and particularly after talking to some of the local businesses, we decided it'd be more prudent to have the more strategic meeting here first, and then decide which were the appropriate businesses to bring in. I know there's already been discussions with some local businesses, both from the council's point of view and from some of you members who have already been out there speaking to local businesses who have expressed an interest in actually engaging in the process and providing feedback on their own experiences of trying to maintain and sustain a business during the pandemic. I think finally, in terms of the moving it forward, we also have from pages 18 and 19 details of the economic recovery plan and the emerging themes to guide the local economic recovery. Now, at the moment, this is a draft document, and we have Teresa and some of our officers in attendance who can talk in more detail on those aspects of the report, Chair. I think from this meeting, obviously, there's already been a number of points raised over the previous couple of meetings, which members may wish to consider what would make an appropriate update or set of recommendations at this particular stage, albeit we are in a very early stage, so some of those will need discussing and considering tonight before the update of yourself and the Vice Chair at the next Cabinet meeting. Obviously, this is an ongoing process, so it's not a one chance opportunity, but it would be useful for us to actually put forward where we are at this particular point, and any recommendations or discussions from this panel. It'll be useful to discuss those tonight, and then we can provide that update to Cabinet in a week's time, I believe.
Thank you, Mike. And as Mike said, you know, this panel has been set up, as we raised in the previous meeting, to feed into the Cabinet. So Councillor Blagden, as Vice Chair, and myself reported back extensively. I think we covered about 55-60 minutes, a good sort of 30% of the cabinet last time, such as the interest from not just the cabinet, but also senior officers at the authority into this panel. Before I bring in Teresa Hodgkinson, I'd just like to say there's been a bit of confusion. You may well have seen today in the local press that Nottingham City is on the verge of lockdown measures. In fact, I think Nottingham City Council have advised residents already to get prepared. I want to make it clear, I've checked the postcodes, and none of the Ashfield districts at this moment in time will be affected by that. So I just want to make that clear. I'd now like to bring in Teresa Hodgkinson to inform the panel what we're doing to work with local businesses collaboratively and setting out how we're keeping local businesses informed. Teresa.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. I think at the last meeting we covered quite extensively some of the support that we're giving to businesses, and I just wanted to give a quick update on where we are from the last meeting. So, as you're aware, our environmental health teams have been working proactively with our business community, supporting them with the emerging regulations and dealing with over 2,000 businesses to date. Part of this is providing advice and guidance to them. And just recently, throughout the lockdown, and we can start seeing some of the recovery coming through in some of our sectors, is we've had over 60 new food premises registrations just over the last month. We've also recently, just last month, had 90 planning applications. So work doesn't stop play. I think the key is about how we can look at the recovery plan. Just to give you an update on the business grants, the small business grants, we've given out £18.4 million to 1,645 businesses in Ashfield. And more recently, finalising the discretionary business grants, we've given 90 businesses £840,000 to support those businesses within Ashfield. We've been recently setting up dedicated teams to support the businesses. And you'll see some of the officers tonight. Paul Stoppard, who is one of our new officers, and we are recruiting more officers to come in and look at how we can support businesses moving forward. And this will be one of the themes within the recovery plan. Trevor Middleton's here this evening to talk about the town centre recovery and the work to date that we've been doing supporting businesses as part of the recovery. But what I wanted to mainly talk about this evening and update Scrutiny panel is the economic recovery plan. We were commissioned a piece of work to help us as a district council and the district to understand the significant impacts that it is having through the pandemic on our business community. The report to date is a point in time, and you've got to take into consideration that this will be ever moving beast. And as I go through my presentation, you'll see why. To date, as you'll see within the report, over 30%, which is 1,770 residents have been furloughed alone just in Ashfield. And that retention scheme finishes at the end of October, which is going to bring some significant challenges to us as a district. Visits, as you know, to retail, recreation and the workplace is significantly lower recently because of the local and the restrictions that's being put on us as communities. Some of our industries have even gone into shutdown, and the report is reporting back that 20% of Ashfield unemployment is going to be on the increase. But we've got to focus on some of the positives. We've got a very strong manufacturing industry within Ashfield, and they're keeping us afloat with some of the developments within the district. Also, if you have a look to Summit Park and the Amazon site, creating of 1,200 jobs, which is around the corner, which will help with the recovery. As you'll see within the report, recent predictions from Experian equates to, within this year alone, that potentially 2,500 people could lose their jobs within Ashfield. And it could take us between 2 to 3 years to recover from the pandemic. Part of the economic recovery plan is to look at a route map and how that can support us and be flexible through the recovery. But what we need to take into consideration is that we need to build the data and get the intelligence as it emerges. And in the short term, we need to look at the effects in order to create a baseline of that data. And I gave an example of the job retention scheme and being flexible know the unknown impacts of what that will have when that scheme comes to an end at the end of October. But also there's opportunities which I've spoken about, and how we can maybe fast track some of our interventions and initiatives, and opportunities through Discover Ashfield Board in relation to the Thames Fund and Future High Streets Fund, which the council have an opportunity to bring in significant millions of pounds of monies into the infrastructure in the district. We've also got to take into consideration the changes that lockdown could bring. It's emerging that there's lockdowns, as we know, some of our other counties close by had lockdown measures, and that is going to be, is that going to be our norm? And if it is, and we go into lockdown further, what will that have, the impact, not only on our economic impact, but our health of our residents? As we know, we're already getting reports around increase on mental health and adult social care. But more importantly, as well as this, is the sectors and the difference, the impact that it'll have on our businesses. So what the economic recovery plan is looking to do is to have a strong sector approach with the route map that's got to be flexible to ensure that we can have adequate resources and focus and capitalise on the growth within the district. And as you'll see within the report, there are 7 themes in there at the moment that we are considering, and would ask the scrutiny panel to consider those. Some of my colleagues will go through them. So there's a town centre recovery plan and their recovery, regeneration and capacity building, which we're already on that trajectory to be able to build capacity within the team, within the council. We're working through skills and training with our educational sector. And we're also looking at the industry sector and green business growth. But we also need to capitalise, like I said, on the development of infrastructure projects, but more importantly, supporting our residents, our businesses and the welfare of this district. So what I'd ask the scrutiny panel to consider this evening is looking at the recovery report, endorsing some of the findings within there, and having a healthy debate moving forward about endorsing that recovery plan to move us forward into the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Just to say that, you know, I mean, I had a look at the 7 themes, and you know, it's very laudable. The one thing that I'm very clear about, and there are exciting times both with the Towns Fund and the Future High Streets Fund. The exciting times for Kirkby and Ashfield, and you know, I only wish that the government had taken an interest in Hucknall. Maybe it's not good enough to have the Chief Whip as your MP, I'm not sure, but what I'll say is that I think it's absolutely critical that we look in the short term and we look after our existing businesses, because these are existing businesses that have stuck with us through thick and thin. And I know the council have done their best in terms of paying out the business grants in double quick time. What did you say, Teresa? 18.5 million quid or something like that. Yeah. But also the flexibility for the second tranche of funding as well, because I know that a number of businesses fell through the cracks, and it was something that Pete Hudson and the team worked on to reduce the property on cost element of the discretionary business, the second tranche of discretionary business fund. They dropped it from 15 to 5%, which meant that a lot of small businesses in Ashfield would benefit. So I'd like to go through the members now to specific sort of questions about the economy. Councillor Blagden. Sorry, just bear with us, Jim. We're going to turn your mic off. On, even.
Councillor Blagden, I've unmuted you. It should be on your screen.
Just press on your screen. Can you see it in front of you, Councillor Blagden? There we go. Councillor Blagden?
Yeah, I mean, I just got a lot of respect. The work that the team's done to keep the business is going has been absolutely fantastic. It really is. So this pandemic looming over us, but with the team we've got, it is looking a lot better, and I think it's going to be a bit more rosier. So well done to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Grounds.
I have no questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Smallridge. We're just going to unmute yourself. There we go.
Yeah.
John?
I think the team are doing a great job, and people are telling me that they have been contacted and asked questions, and they seem to be doing a very good job, and I think we're making progress. That's it.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Councillor Smallridge. Councillor Wilkinson.
I've got no questions at this time, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kevin Rostance.
No, I'm quite happy they're doing a brilliant job. Well done.
Great stuff. Thank you. There you go. Plaudits for you there, Teresa. The next speaker then, I'm going to bring in, and they call him Mr. Ashfield. Martin Wrigley. He's the chair of the Discover Ashfield board, and they do a superb job in terms of attracting investment. But before I bring Martin in to speak about his experiences, Martin's a local business owner as well. Martin, can you just give the panel and our viewers online just a brief overview of the work of the board? Martin.
Yeah, so Discover Ashfield board have been functioning probably in the form it's in now for about 3 years. So that board is broken down into 3 specific themes. One, which I, as well as chairing the board, I also lead on the Succeed in Ashfield theme, which is about promoting what all that is best about running a business in Ashfield. We have another theme which is around Love Where You Live, which is aimed at promoting what's best about community. We have a health and well-being theme, because I think that's the underlying theme for all of us, that if we've got a healthy community, and that has benefits in all areas. And then we've got a theme around visitor attraction. So I think to really sum it up, it's when people ask me, I said Discover Ashfield's about promoting what's best about working, living, raising a family and visiting Ashfield.
Thank you very much, Martin. And can I ask you, as a sort of a business owner, what has been the impact of COVID, and how do you think that local businesses, including your own, have responded to these challenging times?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my own business for a start, and then talk about the wider business picture. So I run an engineering business in Sutton Ashfield. We continued to trade all the way through the lockdown. We're going to, if it wasn't for a chance telephone conversation I had with somebody I know from Department for International Trade, I would have closed. But I think because it was for businesses, a lot of the issue is about understanding. It's not the message is not that clear, and everybody interprets it in a different way. So we managed to work all the way through. We furloughed 3 people, 2 due to underlying medical conditions, and 1 due to age. Those people have all returned back to work now, and with no chance of reducing headcount. As I said, we traded all the way through lockdown. What we are seeing now, and another business reporting this, it does seem to be a feast or famine. So all businesses have periods when inquiries quieten off a little bit. What we're seeing now is it seems to have massive spurts when we see lots of inquiries, and then it just stops. I'm not talking about drops to a trickle. I'm talking about stops. Which I've been managing director at Lindis Engineering now for 26 years. I've never seen that before. I've seen work slow down, inquiries slow down, but I'm not seeing it stop. Now we are, I'm not saying we aren't destitute, because we've got a full order book, but the concern is maintaining that order book as we go through these periods when it goes quieter again. So we were busy until beginning of June, and then inquiries just stopped for June and July, started again in August, and then as we got towards the end of September, they stopped again. So I think my interpretation of that is it's as we get different messages from the government about what's happening and rate starts to rise again, people get a little bit jittery. Now, I do applaud the government's response in trying to plough money into infrastructure, because particularly for my type of business, that'll get things up and running again and moving again. I was really quite interested. I don't want to pour scorn on what anybody said already, but I think we were in the eye of the storm. I think at the moment it feels a little bit like things started to get back to something like normal, but I honestly believe we're in the eye of the storm. If you think about the furlough scheme, it's been a brilliant scheme to keep people employed, and now the government's altered it, and they've got this tapering off furlough scheme running past the end of October. I think that will give us a long tail to any problems that we're likely to see. but I think we've got to be realistic that it's not going to be rosy in any strict shape or form, and this is going to go on for a while yet. We have to be realistic. I'm also a board member of East Midlands Chamber of Commerce, so feedback I've seen through the East Midlands Chamber of Commerce is the amount of businesses going into doing voluntary arrangements and winding themselves up. I think a lot of businesses have just decided they've had enough, and it's too much for them to bear. I get an email once a day now from people selling businesses. Do I want to buy a business? Where I might have seen one every 3 months, I'm getting one every single day. And I'm also hearing stories about companies going into voluntary liquidation to wind up and then Phoenix again in some shape, probably in a slightly different form, in a slightly smaller form. So I think what I'd be looking to the council to start to think about is, how do we help businesses Phoenix or startups? So I think that's what we need to be focusing on now. If businesses do go to the wall, and they always say, once you've been a managing director, you're unemployable because nobody else will employ you. So people who've been managing directors, they will start again, probably in a slightly different guise. So we can think about what we do best to support businesses as they Phoenix and recover from the and rebuild themselves. Let's see if there's anything else I'd quickly made on my notes. No, so I think the message I would give is let's not kid ourselves. We've got a long way to go yet. I think we're certainly seeing certain sectors, and Trevor could probably report on this probably better than I can, but certain sectors are really feeling the pinch. And I think Teresa's comments about businesses have gone into hibernation is a reality. I think businesses like mine that are involved in manufacturing will continue in some form or another, but it's hard work. It's extremely hard work, and it's been, and again, I think I'll reiterate what everybody else has said. I think Ashford District Council have done an absolutely superb job of supporting the community and business through this, but it's not over yet, unfortunately. That's how I see things.
Thank you, Martin. I mean, the Discover Ashfield board, obviously, very influential. I know that, for example, you've been involved in the decision of Amazon, for example, to come to Summit Park, which is great news. I mean, looking at your comments, you painted a very bleak economic picture, very realistic. But there is some good news out.
Oh yeah, Amazon coming is a really positive thing, and if ever the gods were looking down on us, it's now, because what a brilliant time for Amazon. The timing could not have been better, because it's a big employer that's going to come onto the patch and employ people from the community, as we've suddenly got likely to have a whole raft of people available to employ. So that's probably, I should say, that stands in a far better stead than probably a lot of other places in the UK.
Yeah, so what plans have the Discover Ashfield board got to grow and sort of retain that sort of influence? Are there any plans to employ any extra staff, for example?
So we are recruiting for a graduate officer to support Discover Ashfield. So up to press, I think we've been very reliant on officers from within Ashfield District Council who've got other day jobs to do, supporting us. And Trevor's on this call, particularly Trevor and some of the other team have really done a sterling job in supporting us, and it's almost become like a secondary job for them. And I think, if anything, that's been the thing we've been lacking, is having that full-time support. From a business point of view, the aspiration is we really want to get some key employers in Ashfield hooked into Discover Ashfield now and signed up as ambassadors. And I always see it, we've had this debate yesterday. Yeah, it was around what we think the role of an ambassador is. We've got a board meeting in the morning, a themed board meeting in the morning. We're going to discuss this in more detail. But to me, an ambassador is somebody from a business or a community or an educational establishment who's prepared to, as and when needed, respond to an opportunity or a crisis. And it's like fishing in a pond. We pull the right people out the pond to go and fight that cause or exploit that opportunity. That's really what an ambassador is about. I think we've got about 70 ambassadors in total, around 70 people made up for businesses and people from the community who really can paint a really powerful picture. Again, what I said right in my opening piece about running a business, living, raising your family, and visiting Ashfield.
Thank you, Martin. I'm going to open it up to the panel now. And firstly, I'd like to ask one of your ambassadors, Councillor Dale Grounds. Have you got any questions for Martin?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Martin on being able to run his business throughout the first wave of the pandemic.
Thank you.
You've done really well. The question I've got is, what plans do you have if we hit another national lockdown?
I think for our business, I think we've obviously learned a lot. I think one of the issues that businesses face, I think businesses who found it really, really difficult, is knowing what to do. And I think at the end of the day, when you're running a business, you've got to make your own decisions. You can be guided, but you've got to interpret those decisions, and you've got to be brave enough to move forward. And I think all businesses that I've spoken to, including my own, we started out with a plan, and quick within 2 or 3 weeks, we quickly realised that there's probably some tighter controls that we put in one area, in some areas, and other areas we could relax a little bit. So it became an evolving picture probably over that first month. And again, if we went into another national lockdown, then we may have to reshape that again. But the one thing I always say to businesses is, it's your decision. Nobody's going to come along and tell you what you've got to do to run your business and be COVID secure. You've got to decide, and you'll learn from that. And people, every business I've spoken to about this subject, and they're really, really nervous. Within 2 to 3 weeks, they realise that they can do it, but you've got to make those decisions. Nobody's going to make them for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. I'd like to bring in Councillor Smallridge now. John, have you got any questions or remarks to Martin?
Nothing on this one. No.
Thank you, Councillor Smallridge. I'd like to now bring in Councillor Kevin Rostance. Councillor Rostance.
Am I unmuted? Sorry. Am I on?
We can hear you.
Yes, you can hear me.
Yeah.
So, have you kept all this staff, Martin? Have you managed to keep everyone on?
Yeah, we've not let anybody go. I say we furloughed 3 people. We've got one guy who's 76, who still works for us.
Right.
So we furloughed him because of his age. I think it has made him think a little bit while he's been off that. Maybe into New Year he might think about retiring eventually.
I don't know. I mean, it's brilliant to get them into work for the mental health side of things.
It is, yeah. And again, what we did with the people that were furloughed, we made sure that we had regular dialogue with them. And I think that's a really important point. So even for our staff who weren't furloughed, we really turned the pressure up on the communications. People want to feel reassured, and you have to keep talking to people and use all sorts of different methods to communicate with them.
I think the communication is getting better now. In the first off, I was dealing with a company that 80% of the workforce volunteered to come in for 80% of the pay.
Right. Yeah.
And then the government furloughed people on 80%.
Yeah.
So it was the other people went, well, yeah, we're quite happy not to come into work and be paid the same as you're working. So
yes,
it's a matter of them trying to reward them.
One of our guys put in a nutshell to me, because we've got a big factory, we've got welders, we've got people working from home where they could, but he really put it in a nutshell. He said, when I come here, it feels like we're back to something like normal, because I come in and do my job. You know, with good contact control measures. When I woke up that door, is that realization of how difficult life is, and I thought that was I took a lot of solace out of that.
That's brilliant. I mean, it does affect people's mental health. They get into a routine and take them out of that routine. And so brilliant. You've kept it going, Martin.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Councillor Rostance. Councillor Wilkinson, Caroline Wilkinson. Any questions to Martin?
The only question I've actually got, or hopefully once the COVID-19, the virus is all finished, what about apprenticeships? If we have over 2,000 people who are actually out of work, are we going to be able to do apprenticeships, retraining, and would your company you know, have plans in place to actually help the people who are unemployed in Ashfield?
Well, I've not told you, and it's very remiss of me not to tell you, we are looking to recruit 2 new members of staff, a younger person and an experienced person. We are also looking at how we can benefit from, and young people can benefit from, is using the Kickstart scheme. I think the Kickstart scheme's a really interesting concept. You know, as a business, you know, we've been trading since 1985. I'm not saying we've took an apprentice every year, but at least every other year we've taken an apprentice on. Most of our key people now started life as apprentices in our organisation. So we will continue to do that. And for a business of 40 people, we punch way above a weight in terms of work experience. We've found it, you know, unfortunately, I don't know the word no. When people ring me up, and I always say yes, which much to the concerns of our the rest of my staff who have to deal with
it. Thank you, Martin. And just put in your. I'll come back to you in a second, Caroline. Just putting your Discover. I'm going to bring Caroline in as well. Yeah. But just putting your Discover Ashfield hats on. Has there been much interest from businesses, other businesses across the district for the Kickstart? But before you answer that, I'll bring Caroline back. Would you like to come back, Caroline?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much. And I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
That you've been able to run your business successfully through this time. Thank you.
Just generally then, Martin, has there been much sort of interest in the Kickstart?
I think one of the best way to answer that is to tell you that so the Chamber of Commerce, East Midlands Chamber of Commerce, are going to act as a facilitator company for Kickstart, so businesses can actually recruit. They'll help to facilitate that process. We had a board meeting last week. At the beginning of the week, we had just about 320 businesses who'd inquired about getting onto the Kickstart scheme. So I'm talking about wider East Midlands. I don't know the numbers broke down in terms of district yet, but by the end of the week, that had gone to over 500.
Fantastic.
So there's lots of businesses talking about it. It's a really positive way to give work experience.
Brilliant, Martin. Before I bring Teresa in, I'd like to bring in Vice Chair, Councillor Blackton. Jim, is there anything you'd like to raise with Martin?
Thank you, Chairman. Martin, it's wonderful to see that your business is surviving, and well done to you.
Thank you.
Looking across at Hucknall, has there been any feedback on how the businesses in Hucknall are doing and surviving?
No, I don't think I can break it down specifically in terms of Hucknall businesses, but I think the themes are, you know, the themes across the patch is the same. You know, if you're in pubs and restaurants, you know, it's a really tough time, and you know, and I think businesses have really got to think about, are really thinking hard about how they can survive. You know, the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, I think sounded really positive on the face of it, but I've spoken to 2 businesses who run takeaways who saw 30% downturn in the turnover because everyone was going out to eat, not using takeaway services. So you know, there's a double-edged sword. But I think it is very sectoral. So certain sectors are going to find it a lot tougher than others, and I think particularly when they find it really difficult to maintain, to be COVID secure.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to bring in Teresa, then I've got Dale, and then I've got Councillor Smallridge, John. So Councillor Grounds, Teresa, can I bring you in first?
Yeah, mine was just in relation to what the council's doing with the Kickstart scheme. So we've tasked one of the new economic development officers in developing that scheme and promoting the scheme with the DWP and the Chamber of Commerce. And us as a council have already committed to 20 placements as part of the Kickstart scheme. And we will also, the role of Nathan will be promoting that and working with the business community to encourage the business community to take up the Kickstart scheme within their businesses.
Fantastic news. Councillor Grounds, you're next. Question to Martin or comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have any advice for companies and charities that are starting up during the pandemic, like the Riley Foundation, which is opening a centre in Underwood at the end of October.
Well, I think it's a very brave time to be opening a business, but it's also, you know, I think with the support that's around, it's also a good time to open a business. You know, we've already talked about the Kickstart scheme. There's a lot of support out there for businesses that isn't normally there, and I think the advice I would give is get up to speed on everything that you could possibly you can be eligible for and use it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Centre Act is. Do you know how they go about getting COVID-19 tests taken? Not tests. 1 second. How do they go about getting COVID-19 inspections in businesses?
I don't think there is necessary. Somebody's going to come in and say your business is COVID secure. It's like I said, it's up to individual businesses. Only they know their particular environment. Only they could decide how that's COVID secure. I have heard of a business in Mansfield who a month ago had a visit from the factories inspector who turned up and they told him they visited 3 businesses a day of different types within Mansfield and Ashfield, and did an audit on him. And the only thing they did issue him with an improvement notice because his hand sanitizer wasn't 70% proof. We checked ours, and ours wasn't 70% proof. But at the beginning, you got what you could get.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so nobody's going to come in and tell them what to do. They've got to decide themselves. And I think they've also got to be careful. I've seen a few instances where people are selling that service where they'll come and show you how to be COVID secure. I'll be very reluctant to advise anybody to take that sort of advice. They decide themselves. One thing within Discover Ashfield, if people have got that sort of questions and they want to try and promote it, bounce it off other members free of charge. Let's help each other.
Yeah.
You happy with that, Dale?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Chair, Chair.
Yeah, I won't be second, Mike. We have got Trevor Middleton coming up, who's going to be doing a brief presentation. So Trevor might be able to extend on that. But I'd like to bring in Christine Saris. Christine, Head of Planning.
Hi. Yeah, I was just going to say as well, there is support and assistance for businesses out there. If they do want some advice, they can contact our environmental health team as well. We always encourage businesses to do their own risk assessments first, because nobody knows their business like the owner of a business, and they can put in pragmatic solutions. So they need to understand their own risks, but we will always offer support and advice where we can on those aspects. And where we have concerns raised by employees or employers, we'll always endeavour to support in whatever way we can in resolving those issues.
Thank you, Christine. Trevor, would you like to add anything to this? Trevor Middleton, sorry.
Hi, Chair. Yes, thank you. I was just going to, Christine just really said what I was going to say. There is information we can help, and there's also information on the government coronavirus site which gives a background to the risk assessment. And also, once you log in, if you log in for the updates, you'll get weekly updates which sometimes can relate directly to your business. So there is help out there.
Thank you, Trevor. Is there anyone else, Mike? Have we covered everybody now?
I think so. Teresa wanted to come in, but I think it may have been covered. Is that all right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Kevin Roston, sir, and then Councillor Smallridge. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, David. Thanks, Chair. Can you just get Christian to give us an update on, I'm getting a lot of emails regarding the planning application for Lidl, David, in Hucknall. Can you just give us an update on where we're at with that and the site, etc.?
It's still under consideration. Thank you, Councillor Rostance, and in due course, once we're able to, we'll get an application through to committee.
On the same site, Christine? On the site of Hucknall Town Football Club?
There is a planning application, yes, sitting on the site of Hucknall Football Club, the existing site of Hucknall Town Football Club. Not the site that they're moving
to. Yes. Thank you, Christine.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Can we just stick, as I say, to just questions for Martin? Well, because Martin's very generously agreed to come to us tonight. So, Councillor Smallridge, do you have a question for Martin?
Yes. There's a lot of dark clouds everywhere, but is there a possible silver lining in manufacturing because of Brexit? That's the question.
Martin?
Yeah, so I think there's two sides to that, probably two answers to that. I think there's a silver lining presented to itself because of COVID. the government are pumping a lot of money into infrastructure. HS2's eventually got kicked off. I know there's been some more faltering dialogue around the next nuclear power station that could potentially be built. I mean, just to put that into perspective, a guy who was doing some research with the government 5-6 years ago told me that if we ever get to the point, which we need to do, we're building 5 new nuclear power stations in the UK, it would soak up every qualified welder in Europe.
Brilliant.
Now, if that's not opportunity for us, I don't know what is. Now, as regards Brexit, that's it depends which way you look at it. From my own business, we've potentially got 2 Italian businesses already poised in the wings, looking at what the outcome is going to be. That if it is a no-deal Brexit, they are looking for a manufacturing base in the UK, and they've already had some discussions which could potentially double our turnover. I wouldn't want it to double our turnover. I will add that because I think it's too much of a risk. But we're just one small business in Ashfield. There must be other manufacturers within Germany, with other parts of Europe, and particularly Germany, who have gone through that same thought process, that they will need a manufacturing base in the UK.
Thank you, Martin. Can I, on behalf of the panel, thank you for your attendance. You'll be happy if you stayed on in the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on behalf of the panel to all the work that you do with Discover Ashfield, and we hope that your new member of staff continues to improve and make a difference. So thank you very much, Martin. I'd like to bring in Trevor Middleton, our markets manager, and Paul Stoppard, our planning development manager. Before I bring in Trevor, I'd just like to tell you a brief story, because I had a call from a trader in the indoor market in Sutton, and they were absolutely furious. There was nothing that I could say that would calm them down. And I simply emailed Trevor Middleton. Trevor Middleton walked into the indoor market, Mr. Smooth Talker, and sorted it out and avoided World War III. So Trevor, the relationship that you have with traders, not just in Sutton, but in Kirkby and Hucknall, is fantastic. So on behalf of the panel, and the work that you've done has been phenomenal, especially during lockdown and the recovery. So Trevor, can I start by asking you about some of the difficulties the pandemic has brought about and how we're supporting local traders? Trevor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that. But it's all part of the team. It's what Ashfield District Council does, and I think that, just chucking this one in, it's all about people, and the people out there is what we're working with. And we've got it's great to work here, because working with the retailers across all our district, they are people who sometimes with that engrossed in the business that they don't look ahead of anywhere, but you could stand the majority of our businesses anywhere in the country and they would do what they stand well. So we've really got a strong base, and we've got a strong base of independent businesses rather than some of the businesses which some of the other cities are in. The main thing we noticed from the start is that at the lockdown, the essential traders were trading, but of course they struggled with managing their, and to be fair, they managed all the way through the lockdown until July the 15th, when they could come out. The butchers, the essential food traders worked, and they worked their queues, and they actually served this community well. And if they didn't, if the community couldn't get to them, they actually got out to the community, invested in the grant funding they got, and they invested in ways of delivering their products and their services to our community out there, and they really should be commended on that. And to be fair, they've kept on that going all the way through, really. We've noticed that businesses which have been able to trade online or get some form of getting out to the community other than direct step through the door have done very well, to be honest with you. And I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to going forward, is how we can sort of what help businesses would like in getting an online presence. With from the beginning of July, we looked to getting information out, what we mentioned earlier, from the government side to all our retailers, high street retailers. So we appointed a COVID-19 information officer. The idea being that he visits every retail business in Ashfield and offers information, support, education, Anything we could turn into a leaflet or give this information which is not looking online and it gives people something down, we have done. So we've created leaflets on reopening safely, the face masks, the recent one's been regarding this space, place and to the one, yeah, face and face. And we also producing one with the COVID-19, yes, COVID-19 QR. That will be going out this week, COVID-19, which they need to put in the front in the windows to help people track and trace and show where they're registered. So that's been going out there. We've visited over 670 businesses across the district, and that is a rolling program. So we're constantly going out there working with visitors. And also to add to that, I know it's 670 because I've created a database for it. But adding on to that, we've also took wherever businesses would help us or give us their contact email. The contact email has gone on to the database as well. I haven't particularly used it. I've asked the information officer to start building that into sort of like a group email, because going forward, we have got that contact. So if we can't, because sometimes when you go into a shop, they are busy and they've got other things to talk about than somebody wafting in with a leaflet. If we can get information to them where they can sit at the end of the day, if they haven't got time to review it, and ongoing, we're developing that. It's all about the relationship, and if you can get a relationship working, and it's two-way. We are, we're here to, if there's an irk or, like I say, where we do get, I won't say conflict, but where we get angst or concerns, we're here to listen and try and solve them where we can, and the work continues.
Thank you, Trevor. I'd like to open it up now and bring in Councillor Blagden, the Vice Chair of the committee. Councillor Blagden, is there anything you would like to directly raise with Trevor, to do with markets or town centres?
I mean, obviously, the town centre in Hucknall is really, well, it's every Friday when I go on, it seems as though it's being run down. It's not, obviously, COVID-19 response, and it really worries me that market is not picking up. And I don't know if anything can be done about that, Trevor.
Trevor?
Certainly, yeah, certainly. Hucknall is, we benchmark our vacant shops against the East Midlands, also the national vacancy ratings. And Hucknall actually booked the trend, certainly before COVID-19 struck. The national, the East Midlands rating was something like 10.4 and Hucknall was 6%. It has gone up. It has gone up to 10% to post-lockdown. I measured it last week, but it's still below. And I couldn't tell you the East Midlands average, because that East Midlands average will be coming out shorter. But East Midlands has gone up anyway. So I think Hucknall's in a better place than what we're saying. I think the advantage of Hucknall's got a lot of independent shops. It's his strength there. We worked when the non-essential shops could open. We actually moved the market onto the car park to give these retailers a chance to trade, because the high street's essential. We get these through post-lockdown. So we moved the market onto the car park and traded from there. Hats off to the market traders, because the resilience and working with us, it's fantastic. Fantastic across all three towns, to be honest with you. But they went on the car park and traded from there to give our non-essentials, such as like the opticians, certainly the opticians, and also the other foodies takeaways could work. And then we wanted to bring the high street back. So we visited every shop. Our markets team visited every retailer on the high street and asked them, are you okay with this? We've got some plans. We wanted to make sure we got social distancing. And we brought back 2/3 of the market onto the high street of Hucknall. We've still got a couple more outside the library. But we've got the majority on the market on the high street. And to be fair, the market on the high street on a Friday it's the best we've got. The public are supporting it. I think you do want some churn on the high street, and I think although vacancies, every business failure on the high street it's a loss to everybody. It's lost to the community, and certainly lost to the business, the owners themselves. But you also do want some churn. You do want some vacant shops coming through, or the high street changing, so it develops that interest. So we're not in as bad a place as really. you know, when you look with fresh eyes, our 3 towns are in a good place, to be honest with you. Sutton, we put the market into a block to get that trading again. We've gone from, instead of having separate gazebos, we've put them all into a rectangle. I'm not saying it's not without teething issues, but to be fair, the traders and the public have said that that works better than what it did before, rather than looking at the back of a stall and the front of a stall. And Kirkby traders again, the advantage of Kirkby, the stores are in the line, so it worked with social distancing. So I think once I can share this next time I get the East Midlands vacancy rate. But if Sutton and Kirkby haven't moved that great, as I said again, we haven't lost such as like your Marks and Spencers, your big hitters. We haven't got a next to lose. We've got all strong independents, and I think even though they've gone up a wee bit slightly, will look good compared to, you know, our competitors against us.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. It might be better now that we've got the 2-hour free parking, but we've also had loads, and Teresa knows this, loads and loads of complaints about having to touch the machines in the parking bays to get a ticket, which is, with the COVID-19 about, is not a good idea. But I know Teresa could come on that sooner or later. But thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, Teresa, do you want to directly sort of respond to that from Councillor Blagden?
Yeah, we've put some guidance out today, so we were getting quite a few comments in from our residents. So there is some guidance that's been produced by Christine's team, Janet Young, which is quite easy guidance to follow. And there's a personal responsibility, you know, on people about touching machines and, you know, and how they sanitize themselves to make themselves not only safe, but the next person that's moving on to using the machine. But what we did do through Cabinet some time ago as part of the decision making for the free parking was to introduce the digital transformation in relation to the app, so you can actually pay off your phone without touching the machine. And I think that shows where we move into, whilst also recognising that not everybody has that digital function to be able to do that. What we've done is put some guidance out. So if anybody is concerned, any residents about, you know, touching, whether that's our car parking machines, our play equipment, this is where we're starting developing the website more to be able to put more information on that we can signpost people to.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I'd now like to bring in Councillor Grounds, and I know that Councillor Grounds works closely with traders, especially in Kirkby Town Centre, and something that Councillor Grounds has raised relentlessly, including by email, is some sort of business recognition scheme. Is there anything that you'd like to raise with Trevor specifically, Dale?
Yeah, I mean, is there something like a certificate that we could give businesses that have made their premises COVID secure? There's some great businesses like New Age on Kingsway have pretty much turned their building into a bank where you can only talk to them behind a big plastic screen. And they've obviously spent a lot of money off their own back putting those in place. So is there a way we can give them any recognition for that?
Trevor?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's certainly under the envelope of something like up until the COVID struck us, we used to celebrate businesses which had traded for, you know, 10, 20, 30 years in Ashfield. And I think we could extend that to, if it went under the umbrella of sort of like, I don't know, I supported the district, so we didn't actually miss anybody off, and we could take that, certainly we could take that forward. And it's to give, I think that's a really good point in recognising that it does two things. It recognises the traders themselves, the support, it gives them some support that they've been recognised that they actually trade in, and also gives them that bit of a public space that we are here, we are still trading, and please come and trade with us, because the public have supported them, and getting that message out there even further. It was interesting to note that talking to some traders recently, we've had people with bus passes. We've had people from Derby and Sheffield coming into Ashfield. They've been using the bus pass to see how far it gets us, and they've been impressed. They didn't know it was here, so it made me think, well, shop local. Maybe we should think, you know, shop a bit distant, because they are coming here, and we don't realise it. It's really refreshing, and I think that's a good point. We could work on that.
And I know that, thank you very much. And just before I bring you back in, Dale, I know that Teresa's also, Teresa Hodgkinson, sorry, has also been giving some thought to how we could recognise businesses and best practice. Teresa?
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a number of things. We partner up with 2020 and recently had the Business Awards, which we supported not only as a council, but also Discover Ashfield sponsored one of the awards, and seeing some of the Ashfield businesses getting recognised. I think one of the things that I'd like to share with you that we'll be speaking about in the coming weeks and we'll be talking to leadership about is how we support businesses moving forward. And one of those ways is in the past, we've sponsored the Chad's Business Awards. And I'm working with the Chad at the moment to look at how we extend that, not just to give the traditional business awards out, but actually look at how we can celebrate some of the businesses and the communities as part of the COVID pandemic. So it's not just the traditional awards, it's something more about our unsung heroes, or recognising a business within the community, or looking at a retailer who's adapted their business, for example, in relation to COVID and change direction to keep their business afloat. So watch this space. It's something that this council's supporting, and we will be looking at sponsoring, but also having an influence on working with the Chad about what those awards will be, so that Ashfield can be recognised as part of the Chad Business Awards. Also take on board that Trevor has always done some sterling work in recognising our shop fronts. And I think it's one for Scrutiny to consider really about, you know, and maybe we could bring some options back to the next meeting if you want to consider that, how we actually recognise the businesses along with what we're doing already.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes, would you like to come back on that before I bring Councillor Blagden in?
Yeah, that's all fantastic. I'm really happy with that. I did have a second question though. Is
please, yeah.
With the looming threat of a second lockdown coming into place, a lot of businesses are worried that the government might not support them like they did with the first national lockdown. So does ADC have a plan in supporting businesses if there is a second lockdown?
Trevor, would you like to answer that one? Or Teresa? Either?
Yeah, I think holistically, I think this is what the economic recovery plan is about. It's not about the 2 or 3 years long term, it's about the short term. And hence why we're putting some investment into people in relation to supporting the businesses out there. And Paul's on the call now, and he may want to come in with some of the work that the economic development team and regeneration team will be doing moving forward. But yes, we are planning for it. We've got internally, we have COVID groups looking at the economic recovery. And this is why it's really important that we have not only a strategic plan in place, but we also get some quick win and quick short-term actions in place. And we're already preparing. So each of our internal COVID groups talk to each other. And I know Ruth Dennis is on the call. So Ruth will be supporting, you know, from a health and safety point of view, and working at a regional and national level and watching what's coming down from government, and also looking what's happening locally in relation to potential lockdowns coming. So we all talk to each other. So then COVID groups all meet up once a week through our senior management team to report back to each other, so we can take intelligence, so one can inform the other. So I think just to give you the comfort that it's on our senior management team meeting every week, and each one of the directors reports back on their lead. So mine's economy, you know, Ruth may come in, you know, she leads on some of the bigger cells within Nottinghamshire, and we all, Paul Parkinson, he leads on the humanitarian, you know, COVID recovery cell. And it's really, really important that we're navel gazing into the future and not just dealing with the here and now.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Just a brief question then, before I bring Councillor Smallridge in. Councillor Blagden, did you want to say anything?
Just very quickly, because Teresa covered a lot what I was going to say, but I would like to move that we do move as a committee to some kind of awards scheme moving forward to formulate some kind of award scheme for business and anybody else that's gone above beyond in the area. So I
Okay.
would like to formally move that, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Grimes, would you like to second that? Yeah, okay. Those in favour, please show. Those against? Those abstaining? Okay, it's all through. Thank you very much. Mike, did you need to say anything?
Chair, I was just going to say I've got that down in a slightly reworded fashion, which was to work with the Discover Ashfield board in 2020 to establish an appropriate scheme. I've got a number of recommendations. So if the panel members are happy, I've been picking up and jotting down everything that's been coming out, and obviously in consultation with the panel, at the end of this discussion, I can put forward what I've got down, and those can be amended and discussed as appropriate.
Thank you very much, Mike. And while we're talking on the theme of the Discover Ashfield board, apologies to the chair, Martin, because I didn't realise that it was actually Martin Wrigley MBE. So I just to give you your full title, okay? I'd like to bring in now Councillor Smallridge, OBE. Is there anything that you'd like to raise?
Where are you going?
This is specifically to Trevor, and this is about town centre and markets.
No, I forget. Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, I can hear you, John.
All right. No, nothing on this particular question. Nothing. No question for this particular subject.
Okay, thank you, John. Councillor Caroline Wilkinson. Councillor Wilkinson.
Hi there. Yes, there is something I'd like to discuss as well. We went to Sutton in Ashfield into the town centre, Sutton, this lunchtime to go to the bank. It was quite busy, which I was quite pleased with. So I thought we'd go today and then I'd know before the meeting what it felt like in Sutton, whether people were going out and shopping. But it was visible that there was a domestic going on Low Street, which went on for over 10 minutes. It was just under 15 minutes. It cleared everybody from Low Street. People decided they were going back in the car. There was nobody visible. There was no uniform, no authority, no CPOs to come and sort this out. If people are struggling to go back to the shops through COVID and whatever, then when they do decide that they've got to go to the bank or they want to go shopping to Wilkinson's and that, they meet up with abusive, drunken, they were definitely high on drugs. That is not going to help our businesses. I think we need to have more visible, uniform people in our towns to make us feel safer, because it's not just COVID, it's other situations that are occurring in our town centres that are actually making people not want to come, which is not going to help our businesses. So I wondered if we could actually try and encourage to actually have at least two people, so they can, two people on uniforms that could be quick to go to these streets where abusive's actually happening.
Thank you, Caroline. And it is a source of great frustration. And if you remember, this was obviously before COVID, but 18 months ago when we had a problem with Black Spice and Mamba users, especially in Sutton Town Centre, I know that the council's community protection officers worked very well with Nottinghamshire Police. Part of the problem is that it's a finite resource, and you know, I always said that, you know, especially in places like Sutton Town Centre, until we deal with the crime issues, and it just, you know, it just feels as though we're banging our head against a brick wall. That's why we last year we worked with Craig Hall from Nottinghamshire Police, who was our police inspector at the time, to launch an operation in Sutton Town Centre. And we banned a number of shoplifters and prolific offenders from Sutton Town Centre. The problem is that such is the lack of police resource, that they're busy for a couple of months in one area, then they move to the next, and crime returns. Trevor, I don't know if you've got any comments on antisocial behaviour and crime in our town centres, and whether you think that that's putting people off revisiting.
what I would say, and it's something I'd like to follow up on actually, is that I've got from hearsay that Sutton is I know there's that incident yesterday, and I think we will get sporadic incidents, and that's not decrying that maybe defer to Teresa on regarding, you know, the CPO where they deploy. But from something I'd like to ask when I get my information officer around again is that what shopkeepers feel, because I've had it from hearsay that Sutton is actually, since post-lockdown, it's actually quieter in certain respects when we had issues and we're working with Craig Hall. And I just need to take that a wee bit further, because just like we did when we had Craig Hall in, we did survey the shops. I want to bring that in as well as the information officer goes by, because the hearsay is that there's a difference post-lockdown.
Sorry,
Okay,
Chair, can I just jump in to ensure we're keeping on the subject at hand? And obviously we've got Paul here. I know it is linked slightly, but it does cross over into another forum and something we can pick up obviously outside of the meeting.
Sure. I mean, before I do, I'll bring in Teresa, and I'm going to bring in Councillor Kevin Rossons. Teresa, did you want to say anything specifically about this issue?
Yeah, I think it's just to give the panel confidence that we are working with, particularly in Sutton. So a group of people have been set up to look at Sutton, and you're quite right, there has been a reduction in crime in Sutton, and we need to keep on that pathway. But in relation to being visible, you're quite right, Councillor Hennigan, in that it's very hard to put resources into just having people who are just patrolling. But what I would say, if anybody does see any crime, then, you know, if you'd like the numbers for the number to get CPOs who can actually come and respond to some incidents, you know, we're quite happy to share that. But in relation to having people patrolling, it's very difficult in these financial times. But referring back to Trevor, there may be some opportunity through the wardens that the government are looking at the moment. We haven't had the criteria, so we don't know what that will look like. But once that feeds down to us, we're hopefully at the next meeting we'll be in a position to share that with you. But I would say to anybody, if you do see any issues in a town centre, please report them. It's really crucial in order that we can deal with them. Okay,
Councillor Kevin Rostons. Kevin.
Thank you, Chair and David. Yeah, I've had a good relationship with Trevor for many years now, and if anyone's got a problem with anything, you know, give Trevor a call, and he's always at hand. The marketplace in Hucknall on the Friday market is done exceedingly well throughout the pandemic, and continues to be busy on a Friday. It may be down to the 2 hours free parking. I'm quite pleased I propose it now, David. But Trevor, that's a nice smirk. Trevor is always on hand, and he's excellent. Well done, Trevor.
Okay, before I introduce Paul, I know that Teresa raised the thing about these COVID marshals, and it's something that I've had massive concerns about. 4 or 5 weeks ago, the government made an announcement to say that they were introducing all these COVID marshals in our town centres to ensure social distancing, etc. They failed to point out whether they had any powers. They further failed to point out who was going to pay for this. And listening to what you've been saying tonight, Trevor, it's very clear that the information officer that you've taken on has been very valuable to you and has helped you get around a lot of businesses in Ashfield. What would you prefer, COVID marshal, extra COVID marshals, or extra environmental health and information officers? What do you think would be more valuable?
And I think we are working closely with Christine's team, the environmental health. I think that's how it's working well, because the COVID information officer gives the help and assurance and assistance and information, and he's not doing any enforcement. So really, it's an arm round of support and where we can help, and on the backup from guidance from the environmental health officers. And if we do need to get to the point where it does need a sort of like a more consistent regulatory approach, then the environmental health officers will come in and support us on that. I think that's where we need to look going forward. I think the support environmental health do need that support, and I think it's working well, and maybe that's where we need additional help in that to get that, because I've got one chap and myself going around here, and I think working closely with environmental health, that partnership's working well, and I think we could make it stronger if we added to it. And that's what I'm working on within the Reopening High Street Safely guidance we've got from the government.
Yeah, as I say, we're awaiting this information about COVID marshals from the government, but we've been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks. I'll be proposing as one of the terms of one of the recommendations to Cabinet that we do try and use some of this Reopening High Streets Fund to boost the environmental health side of what we're doing, and of course the information side of what we're doing, but I'll come to that later. Trevor, thank you very much for answering the questions tonight, and I'd now like to introduce Paul Stoppard. Paul's fairly new to the council, so Paul, you're very welcome, and I know you sat through nearly an hour and a half, so apologies there. Can you explain a little bit of your role and your work in supporting local businesses?
Okay. The main role is to provide businesses with some information to enable them to access the wider range of business supports out there. There's an awful lot of grant fundings and schemes that are available. It's very, very complex. So a lot of the problems that businesses are finding is that we've got lots of commercial challenges, but they just don't know where to turn. And time is a big factor. So one of the things that we've set up is a business support service. And as part of that, we've identified 134 different types of grants and schemes that people can access. And we're working closely with lots of partners who deliver these to build relationships. And the way we'd like to work with local businesses is, if they have a problem of any kind, have a chat with us first. We'll talk through what their challenges are, and then we will identify a local partner that they can get some support with and help them to get talking. That's the key thing. It's about timing and talking. So the service we're offering is not to be an advisory service in the sense of being able to solve all their problems. We're a facilitator. And I think a lot of the businesses just need that helping hand to know where to go next. So that's what we're doing at the moment.
Thank you, Paul. So congratulations on your appointment, and it's clearly a key appointment. I'm going to open it up to members. Before I do, I'd like to bring in Martin Wrigley, MBE. Martin, is there any questions specifically you'd like to ask Paul, as you've just had your hand up?
I think rather than a question, I think I'd rather applaud what Paul's initiative, because I think that's something that I've been championing for businesses for a long time. Paul's hit the nail on the head. Businesses, time is the most precious commodity we've got, and what businesses want is to pick the phone up and ask one person. Now that person might not know the answer, but they'll know the man or woman who does. And that's what businesses. That's what we've been sadly lacking for so long now. So I applaud that.
Okay, thank you, Martin. I'd like to now bring in members, starting with Councillor Blagden. Jim, any questions specifically for Paul?
It's not a question. It's just to congratulate him on the appointment, and I wish him well. And if Martin's saying that it's good news, then it's good. It should be good news. So well done.
Just a word of warning, Paul. Don't give Jim your mobile number. Okay, he'll be on here all day and night. Councillor Grounds, is there any specific questions you had for Paul?
I have no questions either, Chair, and I just want to congratulate Paul on the position that he's got.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Grounds. Councillor John Smallridge. John?
Yeah, can we maybe have a contact number to direct people to this service that when they approach us as councillors?
There is a number of ways that we want to try and help people know we exist. Obviously, one of the first things we want to do is promote what we're offering, otherwise people ignore us. So we're going to look at developing the website on the council site, and we're also going to look at using social media more proactively, LinkedIn. But we will have all these kind of things available for people to find their way to us. So there will be a number, yes.
Okay, thank you. And just to point out, as I say, we are in the middle of a huge digital transformation. programme at the moment, John. So we will be encouraging, obviously giving out phone numbers, etc., but we'll be encouraging people to contact Paul's department online. And maybe Paul, it might be a valuable thing to do, just to do a members briefing to all members of the council, just giving an overview of the services that you provide, the advice that you're given, and where they can signpost any businesses with concern. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's good. Thank you.
Okay, before bringing Christine, I'm just going to go through the rest of the members. So I've got Councillor Wilkinson. Caroline?
No, my question's been answered. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your position.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kevin Rostons. Kevin?
Yeah, no questions, David. It's just perhaps we could have an update in the future for the meeting to see just how things are going and if it's working and what progress is being made.
Yeah, Paul, you happy to come to the next meeting on November the 5th? Any plans?
Yes, no problem at all. That's fine.
We'll look forward to it. Christine Saris, Head of Planning. Just unmute yourself. There we are. Christine?
Just to say, do bear in mind it is a new service. They've been working like the Billy-O to actually get up and running, and they've set up lots and lots of new systems. They've made lots of partnership connections, and I know that they're desperately keen, the regeneration team, to do a good job for everyone. So please don't, how should we say, overwhelm them in the first instance. Do bear in mind that they are finding their feet as well, even though you wouldn't know that, because they are doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
I absolutely promise, Paul, that I will not overwhelm them. I'll only send in 12 questions today. Now I've got your contact details. It's amazing how they keep things quiet sometimes at this council. Is there anything that anyone would like to, anything further that anyone would like to raise with Paul? Okay, before we move on to the recommendations, can I thank all our speakers tonight? I think we've had a really, really good debate. And as I outlined at the last meeting of the panel, we'll be providing, Councillor Blagden and I are providing Cabinet with updates of the discussions next week and the views of the committee. So are there any comments or recommendations at this stage? Before I bring Mike in, I've got two recommendations that I'd like to propose. Recommendation one is that the council do not pursue the government snoopers or the COVID marshals policy and concentrate on using the reopening high streets fund to look at employing more information officers and more environmental health officers to assist an already overstretched department. I don't know if anyone's in favour or against that. Is anyone in favour of that suggestion?
Yes, I am, Jim.
Sorry, Chair, could I interrupt? Could I possibly reword that?
Well, you can try.
Obviously, at your discretion. It's to, you mentioned about not using it for COVID marshals. Can I say that we consider alternative uses for the High Street Fund in terms of the reopening of town centres, rather than something without the evidence to support it at this moment in time? Now, that may come out as we go along. What that just does is allows officers to go away and actually work on those behind the scenes. We can certainly make, I mean, you're presenting this at Cabinet, we can certainly make your views of the committee entirely clear, but it's just ensuring we've got the evidence to support that.
Happy with that? Everyone happy with that? Recommendation two, I'd like to congratulate the Cabinet on bringing forward and actually implementing 2 hours free parking. I know that it was something that Councillor John Wilmot suggested quite a few years ago, and I know it's something that's been bandied around the council, but actually, you know, that we should be congratulating this council on actually delivering it. Does that sound okay with members? Okay, Mike, do you want to give us a précis of any other recommendations that you think have come from tonight?
Okay, Chair. So I've got down for Cabinet to approve the economic recovery plan, to ensure that the recovery plan is updated appropriately as the situation continues with distinct actions that are appropriate to what's happening. Work is undertaken to work with the Discover Ashfield Board and 2020 to consider an appropriate scheme to recognise the outstanding achievement in businesses across Ashfield. I've got the consultation continues to be progressed to consider an appropriate and fitting monument in Ashfield to all key workers. A recognition of the work being undertaken by the Place and Community Teams, Environmental Services and the Discover Ashfield Board, both during the pandemic and the ongoing support that's been provided to traders. And the final one was in relation to what members kind of appeared to agree with Martin, to ensure the established business hub gives consideration to providing advice and guidance to new businesses / Phoenix businesses, those that current business owners that are downscaling due to COVID and may re-emerge in a different way, which is slightly different to brand new businesses.
Okay, are there anything else, any members, any recommendations that any members would like to make to the Cabinet? If you just indicate now, if you think that Mike's missed anything or anything like that. Is everyone happy for those recommendations to go forward to next week's Cabinet and for Councillor Blagden and I? Do we need to vote on that, Mike?
Yes, please, Chair, that would be useful.
Okay, I'll propose it. Have we got a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Blagden, those in favour, please show. Okay, those against? Any abstentions? I can't tell, I'm trying to flip screens here. Are you happy with that, Mike? That's carried?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, just bear with me now. So the next item and the final item tonight is, let me just go to my notes, just bear with me, is the agenda item 5, and that's the verbal update on local government reorganisation. Following the last meeting of this panel, we're expecting the white paper on devolution in inverted commas, to be published on local government reorganisation. Unfortunately, it's not. However, I'd like to invite Ruth Dennis, and Ruth's going to give us a brief update on the current position. Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members and various officers and Martin as well. Probably very brief, really, in which probably at this time everyone's maybe thankful of. As the Chair said, the white paper is obviously being delayed. We're being told at the moment that that could be towards the end of the year or even into next year. So I think at present there's no real clear time frame for that. So we can't really give any more details to this panel or obviously through into Cabinet until that's produced in terms of a formal approach to the white paper. I think the panel will be aware that the County Council have written to the Minister in relation to their proposals for unitary authority and reorganisation. As a district, we're not aware if there's been a response to the county in relation to that correspondence, so I can't provide you with any update in relation to that. This council, along with the leaders of all the other districts and boroughs, have also written to the Minister in relation to its views as a collective group in relation to the county's proposals. And again, this council isn't aware, and I think probably the leaders actually on the meeting tonight, he can obviously update probably in relation to that as well as one of the signatories to that letter. I'm not aware that we've had a response from government in relation to that letter either. So as I say, fairly brief summary in terms of updates at this point, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruth. And you mentioned the council leader, Jason Zadrozny, and we're very pleased that he's been on the call all night. Jason, I was wondering if you could give an update on local government reorganisation, both as leader of this authority and vice chair of the district council's network. Jason?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't anticipating giving an update, but as Ruth says, we've been meeting as leaders of the all of the county boroughs and districts about this issue. All 7 of us. So there's me as the only independent leader. There's 2 Conservative leaders. Then there's 4 Labour leaders, and then there's the leader of the City Council as well. And we've been cross-party working on our response to government on this. And we have written a number of letters to the Secretaries of State saying that basically we have very strong objections to this for a number of reasons, not least the way it's been handled again, where our chief executive was literally notified 1 hour before the public committee papers were put out, and as were we, that's what the intention of the county council were. And that quite clearly, as the substantive part of this agenda meeting's been, that we think this is the wrong time because there's such a significant focus on recovery that we shouldn't be focusing on reorganisation. And you know, the councils are best placed if you have 2 different councils focusing on different things. People are still doing different things, so you can see that we've been kept focusing on recovery and economic regeneration and making sure businesses weather the storm, and that we're not about to lose another 11,000 public sector jobs on top of everything else that's coming to be quite a storm, I think. And one of your earlier comments, Chair, were that Nottingham City was going into stage 2 lockdown later this week, or by Thursday, I think, and that wasn't going to affect us at this stage. I think it would be remiss of me not to say I think that's unlikely to remain the case, and I think the rest of the county will very soon be following suit into a different stage of lockdown, which is going to have huge other impacts for the economy, for social things, for people who care and have responsibilities, for people who are at school. And to me, my personal opinion is that it's just bonkers that we're focusing on reorganising which councils do stuff instead of focusing on clearly what is the biggest peacetime problem that any of us have ever faced. So I think even if we agree that there's some change of reorganisation, and I think it's fair to say that the administration at County Hall seem to think that the councils were created in 1974 and they've not changed, and that's why they want to reform them. And that's clearly not the case. The councils have been changing all the time. You know, we weren't just moulded in a way in 1974 and we do things exactly the same. Things are very different. We share services in a different way. We provide services in a different way. And we've been very disappointed that as leaders of all of the political parties across Nottinghamshire, that we've not been consulted to provide that sort of evidence. And I'll give you a couple of very quick for instances. Number one, the county deliberately won't take into account savings. They assume that every council has 7 chief executives, we have 7 legal departments, we have 7 HR departments, etc., etc., etc. And they won't take into account the savings that we've already made. So we share our legal services with Mansfield, and we share our procurement with Nottingham City, and we share our building regulations with not building regulations, one of them with Eriwash. But we've taken those things. Those savings don't exist anymore. And my greatest fear, and actually I'm a proponent of local government devolution, because I think there's a lot of stuff that we councils have proved we can do. We're closer to our communities than ever before. We're needed more than ever before. So I'm a proponent of this. But unless you actually fix the problems within local government, largely around adult social care and things like that, then you just create a bigger organisation with exactly the same structural problems. And what we want to see, and what the leaders have all written, is said, give us some time. If you want to do some fiddling around with local government, give us a year or something, and we 7 districts will work together to see how that might look. You know, what things might go back to the NHS, what things you could devolve to us, and we'll work out something and present a real case about what we think we can do, because I think local government can do more and can achieve more, and we've proven that. We've stepped up to the plate through COVID more than any other service, really. With our council, I'm bloody proud to be the leader of Ashfield Council. My staff there are and the Ashfield family have done things that no other council in the country have done. and we're not doctors and nurses or the police, so people don't recognise that, you know, they went out and emptied 14,000 bins every day. You know, when people were at the height of COVID and terrified, they still went and serviced the gas boilers. You know, my teams of staff work day in, day out, and even the functioning ones, Christine will smile, like planning, worked from home, didn't miss a planning date, not one deadline. The teams did everything that we asked of them and more. So I think local government's shown it can step up to the plate. And this is the time for us to have a real honest and open debate about what more could we do, not sort of kick us in the teeth because we're seen as a quick saving. You know, you do things on the cheap, you're going to get a cheap service. And I think that's definitely not what we need. And I've gone off at a tangent, Chair, but I think what's the strength of my case for Ashfield and our case for Nottinghamshire is that this isn't partisan. This isn't me versus the Tories or Labour or anything like that. It's across the political divide. All of the leaders of the county and city are saying this isn't definitely not the right time, and we think there's a better way of doing things. It's baby out with the bathwater a little. And obviously I'm happy to answer questions. We've not had a response from the Secretary of State, but we have written to him 3 times in the last fortnight now because there's been a little bit of political wrangling. So we've sent further letters of clarification about what our points were because we were slightly misrepresented, but we are in constant contact with the government on this issue and many at the moment.
Thank you, Jason. Before I bring in members of the committee, I'd like to ask Martin specifically a question. Martin Wrigley, if that's okay. Martin, what do you think councils should be prioritising on? Prioritising recovery or reorganisation?
It's got to be recovery every time. You know, we've got enough fish to fry without creating another huge problem. You know, and I think to take on point Jason's comments, you know, it's probably an argument for another day. But let's get ourselves back on an even keel before we have that conversation.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Sorry to put you on the spot there. I'm going to bring in members of the committee now. I'd like to bring in Councillor Blagden and Jim. Have you got any comments, any questions to either Ruth or Jason? So just wait till you're unmuted. Just press the. There you go, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I totally support our stance on this, and I agree with Martin. We should be concentrating on recovery. We really should.
Yeah.
And not reorganisation. It's absolute crazy. We're in the middle of a pandemic, in the eye of a storm, to quote Martin, and then you want to start talking about unitary change. Absolute mad.
Yeah, I think that it's important to know because you know, we spoke about. Ruth mentioned the fact that the County Council had written to the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, basically asking to be involved in unitary authorities or the unitary authority debate. It's important to note that since then, last week, members will know that Ashfield District Council passed a notice of motion. It's now the official council policy, that this council opposes the creation of unitary authorities. So that's just important to know. Councillor Dale Grounds, did you want to raise anything with Ruth or Jason?
No, Chair. I'd just like to echo what Jason said about the staff of ADC doing an amazing job throughout the pandemic. Every issue I've had's been solved pretty quickly, even though we've been stuck at home. So yeah, thank you. Also, is ADC doing anything to reward the staff for their service during the pandemic?
Tell you what, you're very clap-handed with all these rewards, Dale. Can I just say, by the way, just as an aside, I felt that your speech on local government reorganisation last week at the full council meeting, when you seconded the motion, was one of the best speeches that I've heard since I got elected. So I just want to put that on record. Thank you, Dale. Any rewards? Any rewards you want to hand out, Ruth? Oh, Teresa, do you want to answer that then?
I think Chair, I think the leader's got his hand up to respond to that. I think
I'll bring Teresa in first, and then I'll bring the leader.
No, I'm not going to steal Jason's thunder. I didn't know hand up.
Councillor Zadrozny.
Let me put my cup of tea down. We haven't set anything out throughout I mean, I don't really want to talk about what we did behind closed doors, but throughout the real black part, the darkness of the storm, when we were first going into lockdown and we didn't know how things were, Carol Cooper-Smith and I did a weekly video to all staff, and Tom and Helen and I, as the two deputy leaders, literally went round and briefed every department. We went and spoke to every team that was still working in the building, and tried to reassure them and motivate them and say that we as a council were putting everything we could into place to keep them safe in their working environment, and do as much as we can. And we listened to them. We changed a lot of the things. You know, we hired extra vans so people didn't have to travel in dustbin wagons together in close proximity, all sorts of stuff. As part of that, it's very, very difficult in terms of rewarding, not to be able to give people things because of, oh God, all sorts of tax stuff and officers telling you you're not allowed to give them a £20 voucher because they'll have to get taxed, and all sorts of rigmarole. So it was a lot smoother for me to go every week for about 10 weeks and just buy a bottle of something nice. And we presented that to staff members across the authority that were nominated by other staff members who emailed me or Carol, and we invited that for going above and beyond. And everybody went above and beyond, but people who did even more. So we did that for a number of weeks. We've slowed down those videos now. And of course, we've got the Chairman's and the Leaders Awards coming up soon, where we'll be putting out a request amongst staff. But one of the things that's come back from the unions and the recent staff survey is that they really enjoyed and felt valued by that constant contact, you know, that weekly video, that sort of stuff where we were updating people, and that they'd like a system like that putting into place a bit more rigidly, but not weekly, but maybe monthly, where we did an employee of the month or something similar to that. And that we would, you know, even, I mean, people didn't really care about getting a bottle of champagne. They cared about getting a shout out and a thank you, because, you know, most of our staff turn up because they enjoy the job, they care about the communities, or whatever role they're in, they care about it. And so we're working on something at leadership now to bring that into place. But I don't want it to come from councillors, really. I'm quite happy to stand there and say thank you and do all that stuff. But I think the recognition coming from those teams of staff, recognising that people have, you know, put a shift in. And some of you know the stories. You know, I've stood there outside the doors of the civic offices while Lindsay and Dora are singing happy birthday to an old lady while they're making welfare calls, because it's literally, they're literally the only person this resident spoke to in a couple of weeks, and they're sitting.
Okay, thank you. Can I stop you there? Sorry, we are getting very close. If you'd like to, if you'd like to continue the debate, we can of course extend it. It's now 11 minutes to 9, and we've got to finish at 9. Sorry to stop you there, Jason, but just want to make sure that members have their say. Councillor Smalley,
you can suspend standing orders, Chairman, if you like.
I will do, but I'll leave that for another 6 minutes, 27 seconds before we make that decision. Councillor Smallridge? John?
Right. Yes, it's great that the businessman, Martin Wrigley, thinks that we are doing the correct thing as politicians. And that's really, really important, because it gives us confidence that we are doing the right thing, and it drives it onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councillor Wilkinson, Caroline?
No, I've got no other questions this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kevin Rossman. Kevin?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think in the situation that we are definitely all in, I think politics need to be put to one side and we all need to work together.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sure you'd agree, Kevin, that you know, this committee is non-political, and you know, we like to sort of, you know, there's more important things than politics, and that's the COVID recovery, and that's got to be a priority. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, David.
Jason, there's one more thing you wanted to raise, Jason.
Yeah, Chair, just the last thing while I was talking, waxing lyrical about the staff, and I think that's my luxury, that, you know, we lead a team of hundreds of staff and they deserve thanking. The one thing I'd not got to the point of about this monthly thanks is that, of course, one of the requests for the staff that have worked through this were if we could look at the Christmas leave. And a couple of weeks ago, I announced to all the staff that I'm granting everybody Christmas Eve off as well. So there are, of course, some staff who provide a statutory service and they can't have the day off. So we're working with them individually to give them a different day off. But Ashfield Council is going to be closed on Christmas Eve because our staff deserve that extra day off.
Are you going to give your team are you going to give your team Christmas Eve off, Jason?
Absolutely not. And in fact, some of them I'm roping in extra. So Councillor Grounds will be travelling around Kirkby dressed as Santa this year. So we might not be doing the same jobs as normal, but we'll all be very busy.
Okay. Does anyone have anything further to add before we start to move to close? So before I close the meeting, can I just thank our staff in Democratic Services, as ever, who've done an excellent job, Mike, Shane and Lynn. As usual, a very professional report. Before I close the meeting, just to inform you, as per the work programme, we'll be inviting a number of small businesses to our next meeting on November the 5th. So please give us a shout. I know that that Martin is giving it some thought as well. You know, about which of his members he thinks it would be valuable to come. Now, with your indulgence, I'd also like to invite Jonathan Gribben. Jonathan is Nottinghamshire's Director of Public Health to our next meeting, so we can get a county-wide perspective on COVID-19 and the current challenges and the route to recovery. Is that okay with members if we do that? Has anyone got any objections to that? No? Okay. And of course, you know, in between meetings, if anyone's got any questions or queries to any of the senior officers, either who attended tonight or you know, Paul Parkinson in housing or anybody else, then please feel free to email them. So I look forward to seeing you on November the 5th. Thank you very much for everyone for attending, and I will now close the meeting. Thank you very much.